Hello, thank you. It's good to be here on this beautiful rainy day. So I'm going to talk about the impact of the internet on investment, which is obviously a very, very broad topic. But what I'm primarily going to focus on is the question of brands, how quickly brands can be created or destroyed today as compared to 30 years ago. Because I think this is one of the biggest shifts in the investment landscape that we have today, is the speed at which consumers learn about a new product or a new brand, and things can grow very, very quickly, and also with very, very minimal marketing spend. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about the history and the future of Wikipedia, because obviously everyone's interested in that, but it also weaves into the story that I'm telling about how modern brands are built more quickly than ever before. And then I'm going to end by talking a little bit about what I'm working on now. And then hopefully, if I don't dilly-dally, we'll have some time for some questions. So if we think about, talk about my experiences, obviously everybody knows about Wikipedia. Wikipedia now has over 500 million readers every month. We're in over 200 languages, and I'll tell you a little bit more about that in a minute. And we've become this global brand that everybody knows. One of the most famous brands on the internet. Globally, we're the number 5 most popular website. People don't know often as much about Wikia. Wikia is my for-profit company. Wikia, we say we're building the rest of the library. But Wikia has now over 120 million readers every month. We're in over 200 languages, accessed from every country in the world. And in the US, we are ranked number 17, the 17th most popular website. And we have similar rankings around the world. I think in the UK, we're about number 20. So even though it's not as famous and doesn't get as much media buzz, it's become incredibly famous and popular online. And the interesting thing about this is that for neither Wikipedia nor Wikia have we ever really spent any money on advertising and marketing in the traditional sense. Zero. In fact, we find it amusing at Wikia to know that our users have actually spent more on advertising than we have. People can come and start a wiki on their favorite topic, and sometimes they go out and buy Google AdWords to get traffic to their wiki just because it's their hobby and they want more people to come and do it. So that's an amazing sort of thing that's happened. So there's 3 broad principles that I use in thinking about how to grow something really, really quickly online. And this comes from observing not just things from my work, but from other things that have been out there. So I'm going to talk about, first of all, word of mouth. Word of mouth is much more powerful today than it was 30 or 40 years ago. In the past, if you really, really love something, you probably told 5 people. Now you're likely to post on Facebook, where the average person has 314 friends. And so good word about good brands spreads very quickly. Give 2 examples, Tom's Shoes and Warby Parker. So Tom's Shoes is a shoe brand where when you buy a pair of shoes, they donate a pair in the developing world. Warby Parker has a similar concept with eyeglasses. When you buy a pair of eyeglasses, they donate them. Both of these companies grew very, very quickly purely through word of mouth. People liked the idea. It was a great story to tell. Because there's a great story, they were able to get into stores and so forth, and grew very, very quickly, in no small part because the internet really fuels that kind of word of mouth. The second concept is the concept of a platform. So here we have 2 examples, Change.org and Kickstarter. So Change.org is a place where you can go and start a petition. You can petition a politician or a business or whatever you want to do. Kickstarter, most people should be familiar with Kickstarter. People with a product idea is typically the most successful kinds of Kickstarters. An interesting design for, I remember one that I really liked was an interesting design for an olive oil container that you would have in your kitchen. And what people do, sort of small entrepreneurs, instead of having to go out and raise money for investment, make the product and hope that it sells at great risk, they get pre-orders. And if they get enough pre-orders, they'll produce the product. So it's a way for them to raise the money to produce something very, very cheaply. So that's all very interesting, but what's really interesting is that if you think about Change.org and Kickstarter as businesses, that they are platforms. They actually have very little idea which of the things that are posted are going to go viral and become really, really important. So at Change.org, very often you can go on there and you'll see some petition about climate change or something. You think, oh yeah, that's a popular topic and a lot of people are interested in that, that'll probably get lots and lots of signatures in the petition, and then it goes nowhere. And other times people will start a petition and it just goes completely massive in ways that can't be predicted. There was one example in the US of like a single mother who was complaining about excessive bank charges and posted this complaint and said, this is really unfair, it's not advertised well, or whatever it was. And it really touched a nerve with the public for some reason. It got thousands and thousands and thousands of signatures and actually forced the bank to change their policies. And no one could have predicted that. You know, somebody's got a complaint about bank charges, so what? We're all familiar with that kind of idea, but suddenly it became very popular. And so these platforms benefit from the creativity and the diversity of the end users. And finally, the long tail. This is a concept most commonly associated with Amazon. Basically, at Amazon, if you look at their book sales, some 20 to 35% of their sales comes from books that aren't even available in high street bookshops. The reasons for that are pretty obvious. If you've got even quite a large bookstore, there's still a limited amount of shelf space. Amazon, if they've got one book in a warehouse anywhere in Europe, they can have it for sale on amazon.co.uk very, very easily, which means that their inventory can run very, very deep. But what's interesting is that if we look at the most popular things in the head, we tend to think of those as being the vastly most important, but actually there's a huge amount of business out in the long tail. So when we think about these things with respect to, for example, Wikipedia or Wikia, you can see exactly how this works. Wikipedia has a great story, word of mouth. People talk about this encyclopedia that ordinary people are writing, and so we got a lot of early buzz around people just talking about how crazy the idea was. It's a platform, meaning we never know what's going to become really, really popular on Wikipedia. I mean, we have some ideas of the kinds of things that become popular. If something's really big in the news, obviously it's going to shoot up in popularity, but we don't know in advance, and we can't plan it and write it in advance. But because we got such a huge platform, and then here we get into the long tail, we've got millions and millions of pages that have very, very small readership each, but all together it ends up being quite a lot of readership. So these are the kinds of ideas that I think are really important in thinking about how brands go. So what has been the result for Wikipedia? So the original vision statement for Wikipedia is for all of us to imagine a world in which every single person on the planet is given free access to the sum of all human knowledge. And that's what we're doing at Wikipedia. And this community, in the last 14 years, has created over 32 million entries across 287 languages. And we, as I said earlier, we have over 500 million unique visitors. So if we look at some of the key stats on language, this is what's really interesting, is how global we are. We have 10 languages that have over 1 million entries. 48 languages have at least 100,000, 128 have at least 10,000, and 234 have at least 1,000. So really, for me, that 285 number is a bit of an optimistic number. I don't usually like to call that the number that we have. We actually have about 230-something active projects, because I know that when I see 1,000 entries, normally there's 5 to 10 regular users, another 20 to 30 not as regular. But that group has started to think of themselves as a community, and they start to think about how can we get press coverage in our local language newspapers, how can we bring more people into the community, how can we get more authors to come in, should we partner with universities and things like that. If you're smaller than 1,000, sometimes it's just 1 or 2 people just trying to typing away, and they haven't really gotten fully launched as a community. It's one of the interesting things about Wikipedia is that despite being incredibly global, obviously the size of the different language versions is uneven, and most of what we see is very easily understandable. The languages that are really successful in Wikipedia tend to be places where people are high literacy rates, easy and affordable broadband. It's fairly predictable, but there are a few oddities. Some of the top languages in Wikipedia per capita, and this isn't the top list, it's just a selection from the top list. Icelandic, Estonian, Norwegian, Swedish, Finnish. So why would these languages be among the tops per capita? I mean, certainly they have high literacy rates and fast broadband, but they're even high compared to that. And why would that be? And we don't really know for sure, but I do have one theory. The Italians always tend to lag a little bit behind because it's quite nice to go out in the evening for a gelato. but up in the northern climate. So we do actually see a weather effect. It's not really certain because there are a lot of confounding variables, but I do think it's very interesting. So anyway, it's a bit amusing. So one of the questions that always comes up is, who are these people writing Wikipedia? So why do we want to know who the Wikipedians are? Why is that an important question? Well, this is a quote from a school librarian who said, yesterday I asked one of my students if she knew what an encyclopedia is, and she said, is it something like Wikipedia? So if you think about today, imagine a student who is 18 years old. So Wikipedia is 14 years old. So from the time that person was just learning to read at age 4, age 5, Wikipedia existed. And certainly in the last 5 years, which would be the time from, say, 13 to 18, when the teenagers start turning to the internet to do their homework or, frankly, to learn about whatever they're interested in, whether it's pop music or whatever interest they may have, they turn to the internet, and Wikipedia has been ubiquitous. And so for that generation of people who is just now entering university, Wikipedia is like air. It's always been there. It's part of the infrastructure of the world. It's part of how they understand the world. And so it's really important. We have a really strong sense of responsibility that Wikipedia needs to be as good as it possibly can be. So who are we? So the Wikipedia community is about 87% male, which not dissimilar to this audience, I'm afraid to say. You look like you might be a little bit better than a Wikipedia crowd, but not by much. Average age of about 26, and we have about double the percentage of PhDs compared to the general public. So this is to be expected. This doesn't mean that Wikipedia is mainly written by PhDs, but it's quite a geeky hobby to have, and so people with PhDs, very academic people, are drawn to it. So when we look at these numbers, there's some things we're not happy about. We're not happy with this 87% number. We want to have more female contributors. And if you look at the classic profile of the Wikipedian, the thing that doesn't show up here is that we tend to be tech geeks. And so your 26-year-old, often single, male tech geek can be, in many ways, a fantastic expert at certain things. So if you look up our entry on the USB standard, it's fantastic. I mean, it really is fantastic. I always wondered, in the old days, every time you tried to hook anything to your computer, you had to download drivers, and it never quite worked, and it was horrible. And now everything just plugs right in, and it works. How did they do that? What changed? It's a great article that explains the whole thing. But I also have a 4-year-old daughter and a 1.5-year-old, and if you go to Wikipedia and you search for information about early childhood development, it's pretty weak and thin, because your 26-year-old male tech geek doesn't really know anything about kids. And doesn't really have that much interest to go out and do the research and so forth. So we want to bring in a more diverse community, and that's a big strategic goal for us. So a lot of times when people talk about community online, so if you're trying to understand how do we accomplish this massive thing with a huge army of volunteers, it's really important to understand that the concept of community as it's talked about online is often very weak. Lots of times, a lot of websites talk about community. People talk about the YouTube community, for example. But in general, they're just talking about the general public. They're not talking about what I think of as a community. People think of Wikipedia as being 100 million people each wrote one sentence each. These are, you heard expressions like crowdsourcing and things like this, wisdom of the crowds. And I think are really flawed and give a misunderstanding of how these kinds of things actually work. We have about 80,000 volunteers, loosely defined. These are people who edit at least 5 times a month. But really, the real community is the 3,000 to 5,000 people who are really organized and really passionate. These are the people who edit 100 times a month or 1,000 times a month. These are people who are on the site every day, managing things, looking after things, organizing projects and things like that. If it weren't for those people, Wikipedia would just be a lot of noise. You have to have some structure, some community rules, and the community comes up with the rules and all of that and enforces the rules. And so the key here is that this is a core group of people who are very deeply engaged in our mission, and they know each other, and they work together under a set of organizing principles to get the work done. And that's really crucial. If you didn't have that, the whole thing wouldn't work. So now let's stop and think a little bit about Britannica, or the German equivalent Brockhaus, and there's other brands around the world. These were very esteemed, very heavyweight brands. Everybody knew Britannica as the encyclopedia. And they were surpassed not in a generation, but really in less than 10 years' time. to become really kind of footnotes. They still exist in some form, but it's not like the high school student says, oh, Wikipedia, that's like Britannica, but online. No, they look at this dusty old set of books and say, oh, that's like Wikipedia. It's something like Wikipedia. So internet and knowledge changes our world, and an army of passionate users changes everything. And this is a really core shift in the way brands are built around the world, particularly online, but I think it has many implications beyond just pure online brands. So there's a lot of practical lessons here. One of the lessons is that people are attracted to ideas. People want to get involved in things that are meaningful to them and that the ideas that they can participate in. And a lot of times, brands can get much, much stronger if they recognize that and engage that. Ideas that they feel change the world for the better. A lot of people are very, very passionate users of Google, for example, because they think Google is a company that says don't be evil and tries to do a lot of good and interesting things beyond just their core business. Obviously, there's the risk there. A lot of people get very frustrated with Google if they don't quite live up to people's dreams. But if you can do this, if you can give people ideas that they can participate in, ideas that they feel change the world for the better, they'll become strong advocates, and you can really grow something very, very quickly. So if we think about the meaning of Wikipedia to the world, because this is really one of the key elements here, is to really deeply understand how global this is, because in the modern age of communications, nothing is really local anymore. In the developed world, Wikipedia is a top 5 website and almost always in the top 10. I think everybody here uses it almost every day. It's one of the most popular websites, part of the infrastructure of the world. But what about the rest of the world? What about the developing world? How is their interaction with Wikipedia? So here's what you know. This is what's going on right now in the mobile space in the developing world. What you know, you hear this, you can read news stories. So in The Guardian, mobiles give Africa's farmers a chance to set up their stall. Basically, the idea here is that people can take their phone and they can text across town and find out the best market, find out the market price for their crops or whatever it is they're selling, and they don't get cheated by a middleman and they make more money. So, great. Another kind of story you'll hear is how cell phones are helping fight malaria. Oh, there's a malaria outbreak in a community, and they can text the health authorities and say, we've got an outbreak of malaria, please send bed nets, please come and do something about the mosquitoes. And so that information flow happens so that people aren't just left to their own devices. In rural areas, they can actually communicate and get services that they need. Okay, all of these things are true enough, but I think they cloud your mind. If this is your model for what's going on with mobile in Africa, for example, you're missing something really big, but don't worry about it. Most people, even in my industry, are missing what's going on there. Here's what you probably don't know. So this is a Huawei Ideos phone. This is my phone that I used for 2 years, every day in London. Recently, I got a very, very nice Samsung phone, so I'm not using this phone anymore. A friend of mine bought this phone for me. It's an unlocked Android phone for $85 2 years ago. Today, this phone is less than $50. And, you know, it's a perfectly good. It's got all the apps on it. You can play Angry Birds. The screen is not quite as good as your iPhone, but the battery lasts for 2 days, which I bet you can't say. So it's got its advantages and disadvantages. A perfectly usable phone. And in fact, since then, these other phones have come out. Of course, it's been 2 years. They still sell that old phone, but there's much better ones out on the market now. Phones that, this MTN Stepa, I can't remember which one it is, one of these two, but I'm pretty sure it's the MTN Stepa. I compared the specifications, tick for tick for tick for tick, against the original iPhone, and they're almost identical. The number of pixels on the screen, the various features. And what does that mean? We all know when the iPhone came out how it really revolutionized the way our relationship with the internet and phones. It suddenly became something you did was to Google or use Google Maps and things like that. Whereas before that, most of the phones that were sort of feature phones, smartphones, too clunky to use, it was too hard. It really revolutionized the way we did it. That revolution is happening right now. These phones are all under $50. One of them, that one's like $41. I found a phone for sale in India, brand new phone for under $35. That's, again, an Android smartphone. So what this means is they're selling hundreds of thousands of these, the Huawei Ideos. They've sold hundreds of thousands in Kenya alone, all across Africa, all across India, all across China, in the developing world. they're selling tens of millions of these phones. And so for many people, they're getting access to the original iPhone quality of phone, quality of internet, at a cost they can afford. Now, obviously, at $50, $40, we're not yet reaching the poorest of the poor, but we've come way, way, way down that economic ladder, which is going to have enormous implications. Let's look at another measure of what's going on in the developing world, internet usage. Let's look at one country, Nigeria. Oh, that's my daughter. Sorry. There's like a funny button they told me not to push. And I pushed it. So Nigeria, in 2000, just 0.1% of the country was online, 3.1, 16.1, 26.5, 38 by the end of 2013. I expect by the end of this year it's going to be close to 50%, possibly even higher than 50%. So the internet boom that we all experienced in the late 90s and early 2000s is being experienced now in countries like Nigeria. Why is that happening? Well, one is bandwidth. In January of 2002, the entire nation of Nigeria had a 72 megabit per second connection. At my home in Florida, I have Verizon Fios, so fiber optic to the home, and I have a 150 megabit connection, both down and up. It's amazing. I highly recommend it. But it's amazing for me to think about as I'm, downloading a movie in 5 minutes from iTunes or whatever, that I have more bandwidth than the entire nation of Nigeria did just whatever that is, 13 years ago. That's been changing very quickly as we've been dropping cables in from Europe down to Nigeria, and they carry on down to South Africa. They're dropping cables in on the other side as well from Dubai and places like that. There's a real upsurge in the total amount of bandwidth, which is having exactly the predicted effect. Broadband wholesale prices are dropping. It's beginning to work its way into retail and so forth. I was in Lagos, Nigeria, and I did a broadband speed test. I got 9.33. My friend was sitting at the very same moment in Manhattan, got 8.38. This is more a commentary on the sad state of broadband in Manhattan, I'm afraid. But when I tweeted these numbers, some young people in Nigeria responded and said, no, they're tricking you. The government's faking it. That we don't really have that kind of bandwidth. It's terrible. But the truth is, they weren't tricking me. I was at a 5-star conference hotel that had a very nice internet connection. So I don't want to leave you with the impression that everybody in Lagos has a faster internet connection than Manhattan. The point is, it's to the country and it's spreading quickly. When we look at the practical sort of measured, this is from a company that people come and do their tests and they measure and they keep up with the average speeds. The average speed in Nigeria has gone from 2 megabits to 6 megabits in just 2 years' time. So it's, again, there's this very massive, rapid thing that's happening right now. People are getting access to real broadband. They're getting phones, affordable phones, that are very usable for the internet. And so the question is, what are people doing as they get online? Are they searching for prices for crops? Are they reporting malaria outbreaks? Well, maybe. Yeah, I'm sure those kinds of things do go on. But the really interesting thing is, what are the top sites across Africa? Well, they're Google, Facebook, Twitter, Wikipedia, local newspapers. The point is, as these people are joining the internet, they're joining the global conversation, they're joining the world, and they're doing all the same kinds of things that we all do. And so if you think about mobile in Africa through this lens of these very poor people with very bad phones, barely able to send a text message, okay, you're missing the point. There's something much bigger going on, which is that the information revolution is coming in a massive way. Today, tens of millions of people are getting access to real and usable internet. And if we think forward 20 years, and I actually think I should probably change this to just think forward 10 years. 20 years is a very long time. 10 years from now, we're going to have massive connectivity to the real internet for hundreds of millions of people, and importantly, who do not speak English or French. One of the big things that we've had for a long time is this idea that, well, listen, most people who, if you're in India and you have a computer, you probably speak English. That hasn't been true for a long time now, but it's increasingly untrue everywhere as people come online for the first time and they only speak their mother tongue. They don't speak a colonial language. And so it's really important. This is one of the reasons I'm so passionate about our development of local language versions of Wikipedia. So I'm going to talk very briefly, but I'm going to show you a quick video about Wikipedia Zero. So this is a program we have where we offer We go out and negotiate with the mobile carriers in the developing world to get them to offer access to Wikipedia with no data charges. This is something that's been a really big success for us. We had done some of the deals in different countries in Africa, and a group of teenagers in South Africa started an online petition for their mobile carriers. And I'm just going to show you a video of them reading their petition letter.
Hi, this is a letter which me and my classmate wrote to access to Wikipedia for free. It goes as follows.
Open letter to Cell C, MTN, Vodacom, and ATA.
We are learners in grade 12 at Sinenjong High School, Joslovo Park, Milnerton, Cape Town.
We recently heard that in some other African countries like Kenya and Uganda,
Cell phone providers are offering their customers free access to Wikipedia. We think this is a wonderful idea and would really like to encourage you also to make the same offer here in South Africa.
Our school does not have a library.
90% of us have cell phones, but it is expensive for us to buy airtime.
So if we could get free access to Wikipedia,
It will make a huge difference to us.
Normally, when we do research, Wikipedia is one of the best sites.
And there is information on just about every topic.
Think of the boost that it will give us as students and to the whole education system of South Africa.
Our education system needs help, and having access to Wikipedia would make a very positive difference. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
English. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, this is an open letter to the youth of South Africa and the student of Sinenjongo High School in Cape Town.
You recently shared a video asking South Africa's cellular networks to give their customers free access to Wikipedia.
We think this is a wonderful idea.
We know that many school children in this country don't have access to research material, which can make excelling at school so much more difficult.
That's why MTN is proud to be the first South African cellular network to make Wikipedia free.
So pretty cool. Yes. Thank you. So yeah, that program's been really successful, and we're continuing to do deals in more countries and so forth. So now I'm going to talk very briefly on what I'm working on now. And so this is a new company that I'm working on, and this is bringing together a lot of the ideas that I've talked about brands and the growth of brands. And it's sort of applying the same concepts to a completely different area. So there's a company called the People's Operator. We're a UK company based in London. The concept of the People's Operator, we're a mobile virtual network operator. So we're a mobile phone company from the consumer perspective, but we don't have towers and all that. Here in the UK, we're partnered with EE. So when you are on the TPO network, you're actually on the EE network in terms of the commodity underlying infrastructure. And we're launching in the US soon, in the next few months, and that will be partnered with Sprint network in there. But the premise of the company is interesting. So basically what we do, 10% of your bill goes to the cause of your choice, 25% of the company's profits go to charity, and our prices are dead on the market. They're the same as everybody's. Actually, we try to be a good deal in the market. We don't try to be the absolute bottom feeder cheapest. That's not really our market strategy. But we need to be a good deal. We can't be like organic tomatoes where you say, well, of course you give 10% to charity because you charge me 10% more. It has to come out of us somehow, but how can we afford it? And the answer is it has to come out of that traditional marketing budget. We have to tell stories. We have to get the consumers engaged to go out and spread the word, and also through our cause-related partners who also have a lot of great stories. So it's a lot of the same elements that I talked about. One, word of mouth is very strong, so people sign on to it and they can tell their friends, oh, right, you're on, pick your network in the US, maybe you're on Verizon. You can stay on Verizon and they'll spend more than 10% of your money on more TV commercials and all that, or switch to TPO and they'll spend 10% on something you care about. That's a great story, but also our individual cause partners will have their own great stories. Oh, everybody in this local church, we're trying to switch everybody over to this network because we're going to raise funds for the football field or for something we're trying to buy for the kids at the school. So that's word of mouth. We're a viral platform, so the concept of what we're doing is much broader than just traditional registered charities. We're a platform like Kickstarter, so you'll be able to create any kind of cause you want. I'll show you in a minute some very preliminary mock-ups to explain how we're doing that. And then again, the long tail. We hope to have huge charity partners, so people like Save the Children and whoever, Amnesty, whoever we can find who is interested in partnering with us. And we've got some of those deals in place already. But also the long tail, small causes that you've never heard of, local nonprofits, school groups, whatever it might be, because by having a platform where people can come and create their own, it becomes possible to do business in the very, very long tail. So what I'm working on with the company is I'm leading the digital strategy and global expansion, and I'm building the social networking site where people can actually go and sign up their friends. They can see how much money they've raised. They can create their cause. My sample cause is there's a school in India in Sangam Vihar. Sangam Vihar is a squatter colony in Delhi. So it's an area of Delhi where the government basically pretends it doesn't exist. There are no schools there, no government schools. And so what the parents do who live there, they get together and create small private schools, either nonprofit or actually some of them are interestingly for-profit schools, simply because the alternative for the kids is to walk miles out to try to go to a school somewhere. Well, this is not a registered charity in the UK, nor in the US, it's just a school somewhere. But I can set up and I can say, hey, to my friends, I've been and visited this school, it's a great cause, we're going to support them, sign up. I'm looking for 100 people. Actually, my favorite school of the ones that I visited, it costs about $2.50 a month to go there. And so if your average phone bill is 15 pounds, 10% of your phone bill basically puts one kid through school. So I'll be able to contact the school and say, oh, send us pictures of the kids, send us letters from the students, from the teachers, from the parents. Give us a steady stream of information about what's going on at the school and how meaningful it is to the students that they're getting support. And I'm going to go and find 100 people and we're going to put 100 kids through school. So this isn't a cause that's going to go massively viral. I mean, the school can't take more than 100 kids. But it is an example of the long tail where somebody can say, hey, this is something I care about. I'm going to get my friends to sign up and support it. So we got a lot of stuff going on. These are actually, I can show you better screenshots. These are sort of our original design mock-ups. We're actually in early beta now and doing testing and so on, and we plan to roll out to all of our customers within the next couple of months, and then we're going to let it go from there. So everything is being built to be very modern with all of the viral scaling, everything. You can upload your photos, do your status updates, link to Facebook, Twitter, everything. We want to basically bring as many people onto the platform as possible so that ultimately they can switch and have phone service. And so this is really trying to hit at all of the concepts that I talked about how the internet is changing things by eliminating the need to have massive, massive marketing budgets. Instead, we're going to just do it all online. So we did an IPO on AIM in London, about 100 million valuation. We raised 20 million pounds. We're launching in the US in spring. That's what we're doing. So now, questions. I would say there's questions. It's an amazing picture, isn't it? So two things I think we probably would like to talk about. One, sort of how would I apply all these ideas to the pension fund industry? So not about how it's changing the investment landscape so much, but how it's affecting sort of your business as a business. And then the other thing people might want to talk about is that we just announced yesterday at Wikipedia that we're suing the NSA for mass surveillance. So that's like a big news story that got one fan here. So that's a kind of I don't know, has absolutely no relevance to the conference, but I know people do read the news, so it might be of some interest.
Okay. Well, thank you very much indeed, Jimmy. Very inspirational. You make it